that 25,000 women in 1942 applied to get into the WASP organization. All had to be licensed pilots before they went in. They took the same course as the cadets did that were learning to fly for the war. World War II opened up a lot of opportunities for women, but in this case, 25,000 applied, 1,800 were accepted, and 1,074 actually graduated. That was quite a secret that was kept, because they were afraid that people would not want to think of their mothers or sisters or anyone like that flying military planes in a war that was very serious.
World War II is not only an important time in American history, but an equally important time in women's history. During this time, America developed a shortage of men in the workforce, and women moved to take their place. Women who beforehand could mostly be housewives began to work in factories, drive fire trucks, and ambulances. And some were the Women Air Force Service Pilots, aka the WASP. It all started in 1939 when Jacqueline Cochran proposed using female pilots to fill the vacant positions left behind by men. She persisted, developing and refining her plan until finally, in 1942, the program went through and the training program started. On December 7, 1944, General Hap Arnold said in a speech to the last graduating class of WASP, "The possibility of using women to pilot military aircraft was first considered in the summer of 1941. We anticipated that the global war would require all of our qualified men and many of our women. We did not know how many of our young men could qualify to pilot the thousands of aircraft in which American industry could produce. There was also the problem of finding significant, highly capable young men to satisfy the demands of the Navy, the service forces, the ground forces, and the merchant marine. England and Russia had been forced to use women to fly trainers and combat-type aircraft. In that emergency, I called in Jacqueline Cochran, who herself had flown almost everything with wings and several times had won air races from men who are now general officers in the Air Forces. I asked her to draw a plan for the training and the use of American women pilots. She presented such a plan that in late 1941, and it formed the basis for the American use of WASP.
Sometimes women were allowed to explore unsafe territories with thin cloth and wooden plane-like structures called bamboo bombers. Women also had access to all military planes, but never in combat. These planes were used as ambulances, bombers, drones, targets, transportation cargo, trainers, and much more. Some planes had a single specialization, while others were used for more than one purpose. These planes had a wingspan range from 26 to 117 feet, and had speed ranges from 85 to 435 miles per hour.
The mascot for the Women Air Force Service Pilots was called Vanilla. She was created by Walt Disney animators who got the idea from a story written by Roald Dahl, which became the book, The Gremlins. Mr. Disney received a request to use the Vanilla as the logo for the 319th Army Air Force Flying Training Detachment in Texas through a relative buried grave. Fifi's mission was to watch over them and keep them safe as they fly over the skies of western Texas.
38 of these brave women died during service, 11 in training and 27 on missions. These women died while serving their country, and the United States covered up their flights. Because many people at the time did not think highly of the Women Air Force Service Pilots, the United States military did not want anyone to know that they had used women in combat, and they chose instead to call them volunteers.
One of these female pilots was a woman named Mabel Rawlinson, who lives in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Rawlinson was stationed at Camp Davis, and one night while returning on a flight with her instructor, the plane tragically crashed. Marianne Hanneron was one of Rawlinson's fellow WASP, also stationed at Camp Davis, and she wrote of her friend Rawlinson,
"I knew Mabel very well. We were both scheduled to check out on the night flight in the A-24. My time preceded hers, but she offered to go first because I hadn't had dinner yet. We were in the dining room and heard the siren that indicated a crash. We ran out into the field, and we saw the front of the plane engulfed in fire. We could hear Mabel screaming. It was a nightmare."
People believe Rawlinson's hatch malfunctioned so she couldn't escape the wreckage. Her instructor was thrown through the windshield and sustained many serious injuries, but he survived. Because Rawlinson was considered a civilian, the military didn't have to pay for her funeral or for her remains to be sent home. So a few of her fellow WASP chipped in to send her remains home by train, while others accompanied her on the journey home. Because Rawlinson was considered a civilian, at the time of her death, she could not have an American flag draped over her coffin, but her family did so regardless.
On December 20th, 1944, the WASP hung up their parachutes and had to pay their own way back home. After logging 60 million miles of flight, the military said they would never forget them, but they did. And so did America.
In 1977, there was an act to grant WASP veteran status, but it was limited and did not allow them to be buried in the Arlington National Cemetery or other military-run cemeteries. Both in wartime and now, the WASP and the relatives of other women Air Force service pilots are fighting for their rights. One such woman is Elaine Harmon, whose story was told to us in an interview with Miss Erin Miller.
Elaine Harmon was a WASP who learned to fly through a program called Civilian Pilot Training. It was started by the government to increase the number of pilots. She learned in the University of Maryland and went on to administer instrument training to male pilots. She said that for every 10 men who were admitted into the program, only one woman gained acceptance. Toward the end of her life, Miss Harmon wrote a will including a request to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Arlington National Cemetery is a cemetery in which members of the armed forces earn the honor of being buried alongside one another in respect for the service they paid to their country. Originally, the WASP were allowed in all cemeteries for veterans, except for cemeteries like Arlington, which are owned by the military. Miss Harmon had all of her paperwork to prove her prior military service, but was denied the rights to be buried among her fellow servicemen, so her granddaughter decided to take action.
Thanks to the efforts of persistent women and supporters such as Representative Martha McSally, Erin Miller, Tiffany Miller, and their mom Terry Harmon, a bill was recently signed by the President granting full military status to women Air Force service pilots. This bill also grants women like Elaine Harmon the right to be buried in the Arlington National Cemetery and its associated cemeteries.
The belief of the time was that the women who were part of the WASP were not members of the military because they were not in combat, but veterans are not defined by combat or action. They are defined by their participation in the military. The military is not that simple. They must prepare, train, and fight when called upon, and even the people that are not in active combat serve a great purpose. Representative Martha McSally, a major supporter of the WASP and first woman to fly a combat role, said of the WASP, "There is no doubt that these women are heroes. The WASP as a whole should be recognized."
The women Air Force service pilots knew when they signed up for the WASP program that they would receive no recognition for their services. Due to the shortage of men in the workforce, the United States explored the groundbreaking strategies of allowing women to have a significant role in the military for the first time in recorded history. The women of the WASP explored new planes and how to fly them and exchanged these planes and services throughout the military. These women encountered many obstacles while trying to join the Air Force and continued to fight for rights and recognition long after their service had ended. Yet, despite the odds, these women conquered their fears, outward discrimination, and legal limitations to do what they could to defend their country in its time of need. They learned to fly and serve their country valiantly because it's what they loved and what they were called to do. Ann Richards, governor of Texas, said on May 23, 1993,
"I hope all the WASP, present and past, will fly high on the wings of our pride in their service. You have my profound gratitude for the legacy you've given us and the legacy you pass on to young women today."